Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we're diving into some unregistered sales that might sound a bit hush, but are actually a pretty standard move for certain investment trusts. So, what is the big story here? It looks like KKR FS Income Trust Select has been busy selling shares, and they're telling the world about it through this filing. It is all about raising money for their investment game, and they're doing it in a way that lets them avoid some of the usual red tape. This company, KKR FS Income Trust Select, is essentially a way for investors to pool their money to invest in various things, likely aiming for income. And on the 3rd of November 2025, they decided to sell close to 1.7 million shares of their Class S shares. Think of these shares as little pieces of ownership in the trust. They raked in a cool $42.6 million from this sale. Now, they say the final number of shares sold might change a little by the 21st of November, so they're keeping a tiny bit of wiggle room there. What is interesting is how they sold these shares. They're saying they did it under an exemption from the usual registration rules for selling securities. This usually means they believe they're selling to sophisticated investors who don't need the same level of protection as the general public. They specifically mention that the investors in this deal are considered accredited investors, which is a legal term for folks who meet certain income or net worth requirements. So, while it is an unregistered sale, it is within the bounds of the law for these types of offerings. Now let's talk about how the company itself is doing. They've reported their net asset value, or NAV. This is basically the total value of all the assets the trust holds, minus any debts divided by the number of shares out there. As of the end of October, the value per S-share for their Class S shares was $25.64. Big picture by the 3rd of November. The whole trust was worth about $865.5 million. This is a key number because it tells you what the underlying stuff the trust owns is really worth. They also gave us an update on their ongoing sales. They're actually selling shares continuously in what they call a private offering, and they can sell up to a whopping $5 billion worth of shares. As of now, they've already sold about 34.5 million Class S shares, bringing in a total of roughly $865.5 million. This means they've almost sold out their entire initial offering target based on the current sale, and previous ones. They plan to keep selling these shares every month. The filing itself wraps up with the usual technical bits, including a reference to an interactive data file. This is pretty standard for making the information machine readable. Now, looking at all of this, what is the takeaway? KKR FS Income Trust Select seems to be actively managing its capital. They're successfully raising funds from investors who meet specific criteria, which is a common strategy for alternative investment vehicles like this. The fact that they're selling shares continuously and have almost reached their offering limit suggests there is demand for what they offer, which is likely a way to get exposure to income, generating assets without having to pick them all individually. The main risk to keep an eye on with any investment trust is its underlying performance. While they report a net asset value, that value can fluctuate based on market conditions and the specific investments they hold. They're essentially playing in the financial markets, so there are always risks tied to how those markets perform. Overall, this filing tells us KKR FS Income Trust Select is in growth mode, actively bringing in new capital to fuel its investment strategy. They're doing it through methods that are compliant but structured to work with a specific type of investor. For someone looking to invest in such a trust, understanding the underlying assets and the associated market risks would be crucial. Alright, that is our deep dive into KKR FS Income Trust Selects. Filing. What are your thoughts on this type of continuous offering and the net asset value reporting? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more corporate financial deconstructions like this one. And don't forget to join our Discord community for more discussions, linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.